Today, we're going to talk about something heavy, something many of us carry. We're going to explore the weight of our past mistakes and really dig into why it's so incredibly hard to stop them from defining who we are. This feeling is pretty universal, isn't it? It's that echo of a decision we made, a moment we wish we could take back. And it just seems to follow us. It's not just a memory, it really does feel like a ghost, constantly whispering about who we are. But this isn't just a feeling. It's actually a psychological process, and it's one our own brain can unfortunately turn against us.
So that brings us to the real question here. How does our brain take a simple mistake and turn it into a weapon against our own self-worth? To get to the bottom of that, we need to understand the emotional and even the neurological loops that can keep us feeling so trapped. So let's start with the first mechanism. The main way we stay tethered to the past is through something psychologists call the loop of rumination. This is really where the whole cycle begins.
Now, rumination isn't just, thinking about the past. It's a compulsive, almost obsessive cycle. The brain isn't looking for a lesson here. It's not trying to find a way forward. It's simply replaying the distress, forcing us to re-experience that emotional pain over and over again, almost like it's happening for the very first time. And this really shows the critical difference between getting stuck and actually growing. See, reflection is productive. It uses a past event as data to learn from. But rumination is a trap. It relives the pain, not to learn, but to confirm a negative story we're already telling ourselves. It's really the difference between using a map to find your way out of the woods and just being lost in the memory of taking that first wrong turn.
So if rumination is the engine that keeps us stuck, then shame is its fuel. This is where the pain of a mistake really truly takes root in our identity.
Think about this for a second. The event itself, that's just a fact. It happened. But the suffering, the prolonged suffering, that comes from the narrative we build around it. It's our own internal voice that takes one isolated incident and twists it into a defining truth about who we are as a person. And right here, this is probably the single most important distinction to understand. Guilt is an emotion that focuses on our behavior. It tells us, I did a bad thing, which can actually be helpful. It can motivate us to apologize or to make things right. But shame is completely different. It bypasses the action and goes straight for the self. Shame doesn't say, I did a bad thing. Shame says, I am a bad person. It's a verdict on our character, and it leaves us feeling fundamentally flawed, just unworthy. But why on earth would our brain cling to such a painful feeling? Well, paradoxically, it's for stability. Our brains crave a consistent story, a consistent narrative. So if we believe deep down that we're flawed, shame actually acts as proof. And weirdly, that can feel easier for the brain to handle than restructuring our entire identity. This gets even worse with perfectionism, which frames any mistake as total failure. And it can often be rooted in childhood experiences that taught us to internalize blame. When this cycle of rumination and shame goes on and on unchecked, it creates a very specific long-term outcome, what you could call a stagnant identity, an identity that's essentially frozen in time by one single event from the past. The first thing that happens is that we become paralyzed. The fear of making another mistake and confirming that negative story about ourselves, it becomes so huge that we just stop taking risks. We start avoiding new opportunities, new relationships, new challenges, and we end up trapping ourselves in a very small, safe corner of life. We also develop something you could call narrative blindness. That defining mistake becomes a filter for all new information. A success at work, it doesn't even register because it doesn't fit the story that we're a failure. Someone gives us a compliment, we dismiss it because it contradicts the belief that we're unworthy. We become blind to any evidence that challenges our painful identity. And finally, our ability to show ourselves compassion just evaporates. We become unable to offer ourselves the same grace, the same kindness, or the same understanding that we would freely give to a friend in the exact same situation. And this powerful inner critic prevents the very emotional processing we need to heal and to finally move on. So what does a path toward introspection even look like? Well, it begins with a fundamental cognitive shift, learning to separate what we did from who we are. This right here, this is the heart of it all. An action is just a moment in time. Your identity is not. An event can be flawed without the person who experienced it being fundamentally flawed.
Now, this isn't a checklist or a to-do list, it's more of a set of internal perspectives to try and cultivate over time. First, just try to change your language. I am a failure is a verdict. I experienced a failure is a description of an event. See the difference? Second, actively practice self-compassion. Try to treat yourself with the kindness you know you deserve and see mistakes as just a universal part of being human. And third, practice what's called temporal awareness. The person who made that mistake in the past is not the same person you are today. That person holds data, but you hold the capacity for change.
Ultimately, we can reframe how we see our past errors. They aren't the title of our biography. They are simply chapters. Maybe difficult ones, maybe painful ones for sure, but they're just part of a much larger, ongoing story. They add depth, they add context, but they do not, and they cannot, define the entire narrative.
And so, we're left with one final, quiet question. If your mistakes are not the whole book, and the story isn't over yet, who holds the pen? Who is the author of your next chapter?